Okay. Great, so welcome. This is the first regular meeting of the Kent Conservation Commission of 2023, and I'll call the meeting to order at 6:32 p.m. And the first item on the agenda is to amend if necessary, and then accept the agenda. Does anyone have any amendments to make to the agenda? And if not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda.
Motion to accept the agenda as stated.
Okay, so I've got Liddy and then Melissa, I'll consider you a second if that's okay. And all in favor, please say aye or raise your hand or both.
Aye.
Any opposed? And hearing none, that motion carries. The next item on the agenda is to amend if necessary and then accept the minutes from our December 14th, 2022 meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review, and does anyone have any amendments to make to the minutes?
I have one thing in the 5A BOCD. You said BOCD was adopted at the town meeting, but it was adopted by the Planning and Zoning Commission after a public hearing.
Okay, okay. Okay. So, sorry, just I want to make a note here so it goes in our minutes from this time, which is effectively amending the minutes. And so if somebody would make a motion to accept the minutes as amended with Yos's comment.
So moved.
Okay, I think that was like everyone, so I'm gonna choose Wendy and then Melissa. And all in favor, raise your hand and or say aye.
Aye.
And are any opposed? And seeing none, hearing none, that motion carries. So Liddy, the treasurer's report.
Well, we have had no expenses this month. We still have $2,240.87 in our budget to be spent between now and the end of June. And that's from the Cougar Fund. We have 43 books left. And we have $10,702.97 left in the Cougar Fund to do some beautification with.
Okay.
We also have our little fund for the Arboretum.
Tree maintenance.
Yeah, $462.
I could take a look at the trees.
Good.
If they need any work.
That'd be good.
Okay. Great. Any further discussion on the treasurer's report?
That 400 was for the work at KCS, correct?
Tree
Work at KCS.
Yeah,
But
I
that
think it could be any of the
would
trees.
include the new trees on Bridge Street too, I assume.
Well, I guess the reason I'm asking is specifically because I think that the outdoor classroom could use some TLC.
Remind me where that money came from and why we keep it separately.
Well, we established it when we realized that we needed to have a fund to maintain the trees that we planted.
Right, but it's money that initially came from the Cougar Fund?
Yes, that is true.
Okay. And we keep it separately because.
So that we also have the budget for taking care of the trees we planted.
Right, but like arguably, if there were like $500 worth of work
Yes.
needed,
Yes,
we would just take more from the Cougar
Yes.
Fund.
yes.
Okay. And arguably, if there was something tree related about the outdoor classroom, we would still consider whether or not that was an expenditure we support.
Absolutely. The reason I keep them separate is so because all of these expenditures are the trail book, printing them and selling them, printing them and selling them.
Okay.
So it's just two different.
So I
Yeah.
think, Melissa, the answer to that question is that if there were needs associated with trees in the outdoor classroom, that's something that could be covered by money in the Kuga fund, including this $462, almost $63. And Yos can take a look at
Well,
that as
I
well.
think it's more the shrubs, some shrubs
Yeah.
need replacing, right? Some
I don't know
shrub,
if they need replacing, if it more so that they need to be shaped so that when
Does anybody-
spring comes, it's inviting. They're using it a lot more than,
Does anybody do work to those shrubs?
I don't believe so. When I looked, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, that's what looked like it needed attention.
And does
Can-
anybody train the clematis vines up the arbor?
It did not look like it. When I walk by occasionally from year to year, I've been doing it, but no more than it could use some attention.
So I think rather than just make this a quick discussion, we need to find out a little bit more, both about the condition of the vegetation in the outdoor classroom, both shrubbery and any trees, anything like that. And ask the school what their plan for maintenance is, because I don't know if doing it once means that we're on the hook for doing it forever. And does that even make sense since we're not responsible for maintaining the school grounds? Seems to me like this is the beginning of a conversation and we need more information before we can start to discuss what the Conservation Commission would or should do.
But I think
Can I just add a thought that we are, as time goes on, because of the Kuga Fund, we are just gathering in more and more money. I think we should begin to look for ways in which to responsibly spend some of this money. So if a little generosity would help, I'm all for it.
We could-
also, I think that it would be nice if Yos could check all the trees that we have planted over the years and see how healthy they are. If they need whatever
Yeah.
attention they need.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, Yost. Let's look at what we put into place. The outdoor classroom, I think we care about as well. But really we should be mindful of whatever we set in motion, we should be thinking about what is the maintenance plan. I know that we thought about that when we planted trees on people's residential properties, and that it makes sense to talk about what goes on at the school as well. Because to me, I mean, I don't know, maybe there's an annual grant to the school for maintenance of their grounds, but it makes no sense whatsoever for the Conservation Commission to be maintaining the grounds of the school.
I also wonder if we could look around town and see if there are other places where trees would be a good thing.
Maybe we could use some of the money to seed the land acquisition fund. There are lots of different ways that the Conservation Commission could, but maybe the Kuga fund wouldn't allow for that.
And Bruce Bennett had brought up that he wanted to plant more trees with us.
Right.
So I'm all in favor of doing some of that, like this spring.
I think that's fine. I don't have an argument with Wendy's comment that that there's no need for us to hold on to it forever and ever. We obviously do have to spend it consistent with what its intent was, and but if we can't spend $10,000 in a year, I'm not sad.
Jean, do you know of any tree problems along the streetscape project? Did any major roots get cut and stuff like that? Did they do damage or?
They made sure that they were doing the root protection as they went along. That was all part of the plan. I'd have to check the plan again. The greenhouse did donate those replacement trees that were going in.
Well,
The
where-
three, I think there were 3 replacement trees that were in the plan to be replaced. And Kent Greenhouse came and approached Bruce Bennett to donate those.
And where are
Mhm.
they?
That's nice.
The
There's
church. There's one at the church or 2 at the church
2 at the church and the
by
third one
Chestnut.
at,
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we took that one down. That one came down.
Okay.
and I
I
took
think
the-
it's not apparent what damage might come from the sidewalks just yet, and I think that come 3 years from now, we're gonna see potentially some stress on trees, and it would be good to have the money or some money reserved for that.
I don't know if you remember years ago when, was it Elizabeth Street, the sewer line, no, was it a sewer line? I believe
I think it
was
was.
replaced and a trench was dug along, we still had all those big maple trees then. And a trench was dug through the roots of the maple trees. And after that, a whole bunch of maple trees started to deteriorate and were taken down. There were a lot more big maple trees there.
Mhm.
And that was a bit bad that wasn't prevented, that they didn't do
Wow,
a job
that's
on
too
that.
bad.
Okay.
You know, that brings up the question of how come we weren't consulted beforehand? We should have something in place so that when a major project like that starts, we get called in beforehand, not afterwards to fix the damage.
I don't know that we can really say that we've been called in afterwards either.
Well,
I
we
think
inserted ourselves afterwards.
We're maybe a little off topic of the treasurer's report, but it is
Those
maybe
trees.
something to look to see if there is any provision in any of the regulations or ordinances that call for consultation of the Conservation Commission when there are municipal projects. I'm not really sure what the what's on paper or on the books about that. But we all are always, reminded to check into what's going on in town and see if there are places where the Conservation Commission can have an advisory capacity.
And we'll obviously keep that in mind as we go to phase 2 for the streets.
That would be great.
'cause
Thank you.
It's Lane and South on Route 7 and then Maple Street out to Maple Street Extension. So there's gonna obviously be a number.
Super. We would appreciate it.
When does phase 2 start?
Don't know yet. We actually have a meeting on Friday with the design engineer. And it's mostly to prep for the DOT review. So very, very early stages. But it is in process.
Okay, moving on from the treasurer's report. Item 4 on the agenda is public comment, and the minutes can reflect that no members of the public are here. And we'll move into old business. So discussion items. A is on the POCD. I asked Carol to remind you, but didn't see that anyone had really updated the spreadsheet that I created to kind of digest the POCD and assign out different assignments really to do that. I kind of wanted to share with you what I had in mind since there were a couple of places where it was obvious. I guess before I do this, is everyone able to access the Google Drive?
Yeah,
Did everyone try?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Wendy, were you able to get it?
I don't think so, no.
Did
I
you
have the
try?
LCD itself, but I just used it straight away.
That's fine. The POCD isn't in that Google Drive that I put together. I put documents that are particular to the Kent Conservation Commission in there. That was sort of our hope was to do something similar to what the P and Z has done. No, sorry. Yes, Planning and Zoning Commission. It's been a long day, folks. To do something similar to what Planning and Zoning Commission has done by having our the documents that we hope to look at in our meetings available. So it would be great if you could try, and if you can't, let me know. Carol, were you able to get it? You're on mute.
Mute.
I haven't had a chance to really deal with it yet.
Okay.
I don't see
Mike,
why I shouldn't. I get into lots of other Google Docs, so it should be
Okay.
straightforward.
And Mike, you were able to get in?
Yes, yeah, and you were looking for people to sign up for a particular section of the POCD to report out for next time, correct?
Yes. So let's just look at that for a second. I'm going to share my screen here. And I have a lot of windows open.
I mean, I was thinking that there's certain people who would be really good for certain chapters, so I didn't want to just jump in and grab something.
That's true. So like I did start to populate it. And part
assigned
of
you.
this was based on what we talked about in the last meeting. So Wendy, I put your name next to section 2.1, which is about enhanced sustainability.
Actually, I sort of did that on my own, and I also did the section 5.4, so.
Okay,
so
and I
that's-
put you
yeah.
down. Yep, good. So I guessed well. And Mike, I put you down for promote resiliency because I thought you would be good, and you may have volunteered for that. I don't know. I can't remember.
Yeah,
but
I
there-
jumped in on that one. That sounded good to me.
Okay, and I put myself down for preserve open space, for promote farms and farming. And Yos, I put you down with a question mark for maintain and enhance the Kent Village Center and guide residential development, because these sections had a lot of, the substance was a lot about zoning.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and the first
um,
one also has the trees in it. I thought
which one is that?
the maintain and enhance
Maintain
Kent
and
Village Center.
Yeah,
I
okay.
think so. Street trees would be part of that.
So are you okay? with
Yeah, I'm
that?
fine with that.
Okay.
And guide residential development, yes, working with P and Z. I want
Okay.
to review the subdivision regulations too, because they're gonna update those. So I
Yeah.
wanna-
Anyone else feel strongly about any of these sections that you're seeing here, or do you want to do it on your own after we conclude, go back into this spreadsheet and put your name next to something?
Connie, what do you mean about this is just about?
Oh, it's because when you printed it out, you didn't see the box, the text box has more. This is about the section is about continuing Public Act 490. So that's what it says. This is just about continuing PA 490.
Okay.
What about section 3.1? Somebody, that's a natural for us, yes.
Well, that, I would think that would include the updating the natural resource inventory, which you would be the leader on.
What, you
and
know, I
okay.
want to cut you off. I'm sorry. I don't want to cut you off, but I want to cut you off because what I envision is not that any of us are going to do all of the things that are in those sections.
Right,
All I'm talking about doing is getting to the point where we can present to each other what's in the POCD, because that is a much friendlier way of understanding and appreciating what's in the POCD than trying to read it cover to cover, which is a little bit much. And I suspect that most of us haven't read it cover to cover. So let me show you
So-
what
so
I had in mind.
What's the time frame, Connie? What you anticipate is we should choose something tonight or within the next day or two and be ready next month to report out?
That's what she said.
Yeah,
Next
Uh,
month? Okay, I just wanted to get that clear.
we'll have to see. It's a little bit like, when you have school and you have like a book report. We'll have to see if we could get through all of these sections in one time. I suspect not, but let me
So
show
what you
you.
want to do is discuss these chapters?
Yeah, let me show
Okay.
you, Yost, what I had in mind.
And their relevance to us, I suppose, in
Yes.
contrast with just summarizing.
Okay, so I went ahead and just practiced. I don't know why it's taking a long time.
And did anybody download those action items from the P O C D that Planning and Zoning had in one of their meetings in their Google folder? They listed all the action items
They
from the
do, they-
POCD.
There is a
And that's
document
very-
like that.
That's very helpful to have in hand, because that lists us a number of times too, where we should be active.
All right, I don't know what's going on with this.
Yeah.
Oh, here it comes. It's coming,
Oh.
I think. Okay. All right. So this is kind of what I had in mind.
I would make it bigger, because on screen, it's hard for people to see.
All right, I'll make it
Hopeless.
bigger. Where's my view?
But the group that's overseeing the revision of the POCD is open to our input. I mean, we're not going to be, we're doing this,
It's done.
It's done.
right.
So we're not reviewing anything. We're not changing anything.
But what,
These are the action items. We have to do action. So these are the ones that have been kind of assigned to us that we need to make sure we actually give attention to potentially.
I see.
right.
Okay.
So this was my practice. If I were doing a book report out to you on section 3.2, which is about preserving open space, what I wanted to communicate to you is that this section of the POCD recommends resource management planning of open space and greenbelt. And I take that to mean that the section is about how the town is planning to identify unprotected open space, that it's a priority for protection. The POCD, these are the points that I drew out of it. It's really only 3 pages. POCD indicates that about 40% of Kent's land area is already protected. That leaves 60% that is not protected, but what they didn't do is tell us how much of Kent is actually built. So prior to the meeting, because I thought we should find out, have a round idea of how much is undeveloped, I went to the clear land cover data, and that indicates that in 2015, only 5.8% of Kent is actually developed, which seems like a very small amount to me. And I think that that's really just like the land cover of development. So,
We gotta find out what they mean by developed. I think
well,
that's,
Wendy, I'm virtually certain that what they mean is impervious cover. Like basically that is like the amount of land that has a building on it, right? So it's not really accurate, I don't think, to say that 54% of Kent is in play, but we should find out how much of Kent is still unprotected, because I think that will be relevant to any case that we make about priorities for future protection.
What is the password?
The chapter
for-
goes on to
With the
list
860.
or talk about how open space protection is related to other goals within the POCD,
Sure,
including
that's
protecting
727.
natural resources, protecting environmental health,
4627.
protecting community character, providing recreational opportunities, and enhancing the quality of life, which is really the entire POCD. They then go on to the POCD then goes on to define desirable open space as these 6 things are key town character areas, environmentally important land, land that connects land. I'm assuming connections between protected land, land that's scenic, land that can be used for recreation, and then there's an other which is then expanded on to mean high quality farmland, gateways to our town, and archaeological sites are some examples of that. The POCD says that our Conservation Commission maintains an inventory of open space. It's really unclear to me whether that means we're supposed to have an inventory of open space that's not yet protected or an inventory of protected open space. But there are inventories of protected open space, including that which is available through HVA, which is mentioned in the POCD. And the POCD itself contains a map of protected open space. Interestingly, they identify North Kent Road as a point of public access to our Housatonic River, which is maybe not, I don't know if that is as solidly maintained as a public access area as the POCD makes it out to be.
I just drove down it today. I don't think it is.
Yeah, I can't go down it in my car.
Here's what the POCD recommends. And the bolded items are where we, in the POCD, are given assignments. So the number
Just
one,
this section.
just this section, right? And you'll notice that I fit this all on one page. So my hope was that all of the chapters could be digested onto just one page that becomes like a working document for us. So number one is the recommendation that protected open space be increased specifically for the goals A through E above. And the Kent Land Trust and the Planning and Zoning Commission are also identified as partners in that recommendation. The second is that the Conservation Commission should be recognized as the lead town agency for coordinating open space preservation efforts. The town is the one that is indicated to be responsible for that, and it's a little unclear to me why, but maybe as we discuss the open space, the land acquisition fund, we can talk about that a little bit more. Number three is to establish a land acquisition fund. That responsibility for that is given to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. Number four is that we should support efforts to extend and link trails, and that is exclusively given to the Kent Conservation Commission. So we can focus on that. Number five is to embrace the Appalachian Trail as an asset to Kent. The town is indicated as a partner in that. Again, not really clear what the town means, but it would be, I think, fun to have a conversation at some point over the course of this year about how we might encourage the promotion of the Appalachian Trail as an asset to Kent. Number six is to create trails along the Housatonic River and increase access to the Housatonic, and the Kent Land Trust is named as a partner in that, probably because Glenn Chalder knew about the all access trail that the Kent Land Trust has planned down at the farm and barns. Number seven is to modify section 3.8 of the subdivision regs to include preservation of open space as part of every single subdivision, interestingly enough, whether that is an open space set aside on the subdivision itself or some kind of a trade-off for open space designation elsewhere in Kent, or a payment in fee of a fee in lieu of that set aside. And the responsibility is given to the Planning and Zoning Commission there. But Yos, as you suggested, we ought to, keep a fairly close eye on that so that we know what's going on and can lend our support. Number eight is to revisit the open space definitions in the subdivision regs, also given to the P&Z, to modify the subdivision regs to include public access and trails as part of the open space reservation process, again, P&Z. And then number 10, to support the efforts of private conservation organizations. And the town is another partner in that. So that is what this section says, and those are our marching orders with respect to open space protection.
I think you should share that, and we can use that as a guide as we each go through our sections.
So it's in the drive.
Okay.
So if you want to just use this as a template, you can put your parts underneath it, and we'll just have it in one
Sounds good.
document.
Sounds good.
Connie, as a guideline, something like item 10, support the efforts That's kind of the wording that we see in the P and Z a lot, but it never says,
Yes.
I mean, don't we want to be more specific? How do you support the efforts of the private conservation organization?
Um,
What does
so
that
Wendy,
mean?
all I was trying to do was give you what the PNC, what the POCD says. I agree with you.
Okay.
But I think that since we are, it's bolded, we are the lead partner in this, it's up to us to decide how we support the efforts of private conservation organizations.
So
the-
so in the long run, this sentence would be a longer one with more specifics, I guess.
Well, it's never going to be because this comes out of the POCD, but in the long run, it's up to our Conservation Commission to decide how we as a commission can support the efforts of private conservation organizations.
Do we write this up for ourselves and have it be some guidelines for us?
I don't know.
Okay, that's
So
because
my-
this is all interesting.
my
but what are we
very-
gonna do with it?
Right. My very first thought was, let's at least present to each other
Absolutely.
what's in the POCD.
Absolutely.
And then maybe where we go from here is, if we like our chapter captains, then maybe we all take turns, just the same way as I did this, saying, okay, you've seen this before. This is what I think we ought to do in order to implement this recommendation. And then we discuss it.
Okay.
So nobody decides on their
No, no.
own, but we could have a discussion and that discussion gets facilitated by us taking little chunks as opposed to the whole thing.
Little chunks and making some decisions for KCC to do something
And then we could write our own notes under it saying, this is what we plan to do.
for us,
Yes,
not for the POCD.
not for the POCD and not for the public
Publication.
necessarily, but just so we have our own little work plan.
Right, I was gonna say, it could create, you create one full sort of list and then prioritize, even doing I forget what it's called, but when you write everything out on a Post-it and you vote on all
Good
the
jam
different.
board.
Yeah,
Right.
I forget what a nominal something, I forget what it's called. And then you would come to everybody on the commission would come to an agreement on, here's our list of priorities to focus on, and then that gives you your work plan. That's a great idea.
I mean, this is a big responsibility if the Conservation Commission is really being designated or identified as the leader partner on some of these issues. If we don't pay attention, they're going to fall, they're going to drop. So we have to kind of stay on top of what needs to be done.
Right. Well, this is a 10-year timeline before everyone gets super nervous.
Right.
But this kind of illustrates, some of the observations that we've been making over the course of time as the POCD got updated, that it has a tendency to sit on a shelf. And that's because people really haven't taken up the responsibility to lead the charge on the recommendations. And so this is an opportunity for us,
Mhm.
really. I don't think that anyone's gonna point fingers if we do nothing, because that's been the pattern. But Carol, I think that you're right, that this is a real opportunity for us to implement the recommendations this time.
Yeah, and it's also gonna be great background to drive your budget requests that you make going forward from a strategic plan.
Look at that. Jean has
standpoint.
invited us to make a budget request. Uh,
So has Barbara Herbst. I'm supposed to be doing that,
Good.
working on that.
Good. Okay. Anything more on this? It seems like I got you excited to
This is
to
great.
do this.
Mhm.
Well,
Okay.
just one question, technical question. So when I go into the Google Doc and I read the sections that I'm going to volunteer to be, overseeing, then
Mhm.
when I create a document, like a one-page document of this, where I'm pointing out the things where we want to pay attention, where am I putting this one-page document? Is that a separate place in the Google Drive?
You can either just this is a Word doc that I wrote this in. So you
Okay.
can either just add it to the bottom, put a line or something. Or if you don't feel like doing that, or it worries you or whatever, if you want to just write it up into a document and send it to me by email, then I'll put it up into
All
here.
right, so but at the very least, my design is that for each section that I'm dealing with, I have a one-page summary on highlights of what to be looked at.
There are only 3 sections that don't have somebody already assigned.
So good. Run, don't walk. Just
Is
sign
there
up for
anybody
the
who's
one
not at
that
the
you
meeting?
like.
That's an easy way to assign those.
Carol, have you got one that you're particularly interested in?
Not yet. I'll take a look later.
Okay, and you will see also that like, I did not need, I didn't need to make up any words in order to come up with this. I really took it right from the P O C D, but doing this, like any note taking, enabled me to be able to talk about it with you in a way that, you know, was a little bit more coherent
Yeah, it's
than if
much
I had
more
just had it
digestible.
green and I read it more closely than I ever would have if I was trying to read the P O C D from cover to cover.
Well, I think taking the exact words really give us the validation to be active with it.
All right.
So how do you put it directly onto the Google Drive?
Could you
Or-
create, like, for each section, like, do a copy and paste and then rename it?
We could do it. I don't
You
think
guys can figure
yeah,
it out.
I don't think we have to go. that
Yos,
far.
if you don't want to deal with putting it on the Google
Well,
Drive,
no,
just
I don't
send
know
it
how
to
you,
me.
how you do it.
Just write it as a
Just-
document.
Just
to
send it
Yeah.
to me and I'll do it.
No, I don't mind
Are you happy?
learning that. but-
Okay.
Are you happy doing those 2 that she's assigned?
Yeah, I'm fine
Okay.
with that.
Okay,
Yeah.
then if you want to try, all right, you have your one page that you've created as a
Yeah.
Word doc on your computer, and you'll go to this primary folder. Right, which is just the link that I showed
Yeah.
you, it's Conservation Commission
Uh-huh.
meeting documents 2023, and you just drag your file in there.
Or you could do it
Or send
there.
it to-
Or
Under
you
the
could,
little plus sign.
yeah, you could
Okay.
also do this and it'll say file upload, and if you click that, it'll prompt you to find it on your
Mhm.
computer, and then you can do it that way.
Okay.
And if, you know, if it doesn't work out, if you don't have the time to deal with it, just email
Gotta
it to
learn
me.
it sooner or later.
And I want to just clarify one thing, Connie, when you asked me to remind everybody, I didn't put the link to the Google Doc because I didn't want that in our public notice of the meeting. But do other people wouldn't have permission to get in anyway to our Google Doc, correct?
I think I made it so anyone with the link could view it.
So Carol's
Uh,
right in not doing that then.
No, I think that when we talk about these documents, technically they're public documents. And so I really don't think anything that we do or put in this folder is private to the Conservation Commission.
Yeah, and we had the other, like the Board of Selectmen and Planning and Zoning and the other and Board of Finance.
Anyone
They're
can
all
look at it.
starting to be in the habit of putting that Google Drive.
I'm just
link.
thinking what we write up as our little summary of our section.
People are gonna be able to see it.
Do we want that?
We
Yeah,
have to.
yeah,
no
It's the
problem.
rules.
Okay.
And-
It's not like this one.
But it is
But
reminding
I'm
me
saying
that
that-
I have to make this digest document editable. So I have to make a note. Because a lot of these things I just made as view only files. So you could view them, you could download them for yourself if you want, but you can't edit them. But the digest one I will make.
Yeah, but
edit-
if we want to do a copy and paste of the words, we need to be able to edit.
You can do a copy and paste of any words of almost any document, but what you
Okay.
can't do is edit the document. But in this case, we do want you to be able to edit the document. I mean, don't erase what your colleagues have written, but you know, we want you to be able
Got
to
it.
add.
Okay.
So what's the link?
What's available.
I'll send it to you again. I didn't know, you know, it's this, Wendy.
That
I mean,
Yeah, it's
Liddy.
long.
Yeah,
No,
it's a lot.
Maybe,
Well,
Connie,
what-
maybe send an email to everybody with the link again to remind them, or does everyone have it?
I'll send it.
I think I have it, but I just assume have it again.
Okay. All right. We're gonna move along. to the next item on the agenda, and I'm gonna leave my sharing up. Because this is the ordinance enabling Kent to purchase open space and other land. And the first thing that I wanted to show you is that we talked at the last meeting about drafting a letter to the Board of Selectmen, simply asking them to recognize, as is recommended in the POCD, that the Kent Conservation Commission is the lead town agency in terms of open space protection. So I took this language again from the POCD, and let's see if I can make this a little bigger for you. Board of Selectmen meet again like in the 20s, right? 25th. Okay. So that we could send this as soon as you think it's ready. But the letter that I drafted says, pursuant to the recommendations in section 3.2, preserve open space within Kent's recently adopted 2022 to 2032 Plan of Conservation and Development, we respectfully request that the town recognize the Conservation Commission as the lead town agency for coordinating open space preservation efforts. Please advise of any process necessary in connection with such recognition. And then the second ask here is, as a leader, and that's according to the recommendations, as a leader in pursuing the additional recommendation in the above referenced section 3.2, to establish a land acquisition fund to receive fee in lieu of open space payments and or any municipal or other funds. We also respectfully request the board's support in working with the Board of Finance to establish a fund for such purpose.
Who establishes what that fee in lieu of open space? Is that a standard or a state?
That refers back to this idea. Is this my digest? This idea, Wendy, in the POCD that section 3.8 of the subdivision regs would be amended to include preservation of open space as part of every subdivision. And if the subdivision developer chose not to include open space on site of the subdivision, that they could pay a fee in lieu of doing so. And that fee would then go into the land acquisition
Who
fund.
sets
My only question is who establishes what that payment would be? What's it based on? Is it a
It's
percentage?
10% of the original market value, I believe, of the property. And that's in state statute.
It's in state statute. That's what
Yeah.
I want. Okay.
And some of this is spelled out more distinctly in the draft ordinance that Yost put together that we can be discussing, as our meetings progress. This letter, of course, just kind of gives a heads up to and makes the ask of the Board of Selectmen saying, POCD recommends this. We intend to take that responsibility. We would like you to make this recognition and join us in working with the Board of Finance to establish a land acquisition fund. So we're not saying anything about the mechanism of the fund yet, but we will, I think by the time we're ready to go to the Board of Finance, by the time the Board of Selectmen discusses this ask, we'll have a proposed ordinance in mind that we can discuss as well.
So I like this. This is exactly what I was thinking about last meeting. And I think it gets the ball rolling in the right direction. So I think that we should send it. And
I
if you need
move
a
to
motion,
approve.
Second,
there we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And is there, forgive me, is there something about the intention of ending up with a proposal for an ordinance in there?
I don't think that we would put that there yet because we haven't fully vetted all the possibilities.
We're just requesting that the Board of Selectmen be a partner with us as indicated and recommended in the POCD
Okay.
in working on this establishment of a land acquisition fund.
Okay.
And I will, and likely others of us will come to the meeting so that we can, dialogue with the board on it. All right.
Jean, it's really just a step one to say, hey, we're working on this. We don't want you to be caught off guard when we do have something coming down the pike.
Right.
Like,
the intro to the next.
Yeah,
absolutely.
tons
Thanks
of
for
other
doing
steps.
that. Thanks.
Go
for
ahead,
getting
Wendy.
that going.
She said, thank you.
Oh,
Okay.
Missed that.
Some other steps might include an analysis of what the economic impact of doing this would be for the town.
Mhm.
The potential funds derived from different mechanisms of funding the fund. There's a lot that can be done to answer the questions of the Board of Finance and eventually the townspeople. But we're gonna start with this very basic, like, can we just all get it out there that the POCD says this and we intend to
We
get
all
it done
agree.
this time. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing. But if you want to look back on this letter, it's in Drive now, as well as a lot of other good stuff that has to do with the land acquisition fund and with an open space plan. All right, so
So
updates.
at this point, you're sending the letter. We voted that you're sent, or you sent it already.
I'm not sure
Nope.
we actually voted.
sent
We
it.
made a motion and we seconded it.
Right, right. That's what I wanted to get to, because I thought, let's just vote it and go on. It's terrific.
We haven't actually voted.
Okay, the motion on the table is to send the letter. So,
It's been
Do you-
moved and seconded.
and we had and can you tell me again who's the mover was Melissa and who was the seconder?
I think Mike did.
Okay. All in favor, please raise your hand and or say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And seeing none, the motion carries. Thanks. Okay, so 5C, Green Energy Task Force, Wendy.
I've been in touch with all the people who were instrumental in putting on the program in October, asking them if we want to continue. Everybody seems to be answering yes. And I've asked Jean to put in the January newsletter a sort of wanted notice. We want some additional people who would join something like an ad hoc green energy task force, which would not be appointed, but just involve volunteers with the idea that we would work with individuals in the administration, in business, in residential, to answer their questions, get them to the right people, just help one-on-one as mentors to people wanting to get involved in green energy. It's a complicated field. I'm learning it every day because I'm trying to do it myself. It's not something as easy as you'd wish it to be. But I think if we have a bunch of nerds that volunteer to do this, I think it could be an interesting way to take mentorship to a different area and help move people along. And the one other thing I will say is that I promised Jean, I guess that in 2 weeks, I will have contacted the Green Bank to see how we can get back on track to reinvestigate a new way of financing green energy for our municipal buildings. We got turned down for everything but the school before the school is getting their roof now.
So
we need
I
to
just
go back
listened
the
to the
other
Board of
way.
Ed meeting though. Wendy, the school has put their project on hold, it sounds like. You should listen to the Board of Ed meeting.
and why is that?
Why is it on
The
hold?
the roof, the part of the roof that is gonna have the solar, to my understanding, is past its warranty, and so they put it on hold. But at the meeting, they were awaiting an update. So it wasn't super clear whether it would be resolved or if it was gonna be put on hold and they were gonna reinvestigate future plans and future options.
When we
And
went
not
to, when we went to, on the roof, Wendy, you and I and was it Dana, we discussed that.
Oh,
with-
yeah. Wow.
But that was before when the plan was gonna go up in a timely fashion, and because it's now been delayed, now the roof is past expiration. So again, I would just listen to the meeting and
Mismanagement.
So was it gonna be on the original roof without replacing it and
Oh, no, no, it was going to be on the
And
portion
now
of the roof that was good.
It was going to be on
Uh-huh.
a healthy part of the roof. There are many, many pieces of roof on that building.
and isn't there another good part, or relatively new part of the roof?
Almost everything else was
Was
going to
old.
be more difficult. This was just a natural, nice and flat.
I think it was the January 3rd Board of Ed meeting, Wendy.
Okay. All I can say is we did our part.
I know.
Okay, Wendy, I think that, were you done with your remarks to Jean about the conversation that you guys had about municipal buildings? Because I think that's what we were talking about when the school installation came up.
Yeah, well, there are 6 or 7 other buildings that might be treated as a combined unit if under the new regulations, and have a single source of green energy, or combined, or anyway, that's the idea. The rules have changed and I just have to go back. I've got all the data on how much electricity each of the buildings uses, and it's probably fairly close to being accurate. Nothing changes much. But
It'll be 100% more now than.
the firehouse had the idea they wanted to do it all by themselves, but I don't think anything's happened. So I'm sure they could be persuaded to come back in under a group application. I'm not sure. I'll take that back. I'm not sure of anything anymore.
But all the buildings would have their own system, but they would just apply together as one
Well, no, I mean, one of the
application.
problems is it's too expensive. Take a place like the sewage treatment plant. They have a perfect location there for putting solar, but they don't use much electricity, and it wouldn't pay for anybody to put up this elaborate system of collecting energy and just have it work for the sewage treatment plant. The way it has to be done is they have to be put into some kind of a combined customer by Eversource. And however, I guess it's called distributed energy. I'm not sure how they call it, but that's what has to be done. They have to rethink how they would distribute the cost of this. And that's been under, I mean, Eversource has figured this out. So we just have to ask them to apply it to our situation and see if it works.
Was the sewer plant one also on their roof?
No, that was, I think the best arrangement for that would have been a field.
That's good because they're redoing their roof
Yeah,
now and there's no weight abilities.
but I mean, there's a hell of a lot of space down there and a perfect southern exposure. So if they could, since this electricity goes into Eversource and then gets fed back to the buildings, I don't see why it can't be done that way. But it would then lower the cost of electricity in all those buildings.
Yeah, historically, that hasn't been allowed because it's been considered on a building by building basis, and you weren't allowed to design the capacity of a system to exceed the usage of one facility. But I think the state has finally kicked Eversource in the pants so that they have to start considering that.
They did this in 3 towns and they gave them 2 years to get it done. And I think they did. And it turned out to prove that it was a good idea. But we have to reapply. So I've just been too busy with other things, but I promised Jean I'd get back to her in 2 weeks. So I got to do that. Right?
All right. Okay. Because
But let me just add that anybody who can think of somebody who really would like to become well informed about solar and other forms of green energy and who would like to become a mentor, to ask them to give me a call. We'll set up a little training session and get people to be specialists in different areas and help our townspeople make some progress on this. I think there are lots of people who'd love to do this if they could just figure out how to get started. And that would be the role of these mentors.
okay. All right. We have people chomping at the bit to get out of here. Let's see how quickly we can move through. And if you need to leave, that's fine. Anything new on Kent Trails, the Hiker's Guide? We already have the 43 books that are printed and remain to be allocated or sold.
And I'm not sure that we should print any more. For instance, I just walked in Avian Preserve today and our map is not there. So I think maybe people are just not using them when they're actually hiking.
You mean it's not in the map box or it's not in the kiosk?
It's not in the kiosk and it's not on that board.
Oh, that's interesting.
We
And
did
we-
just have some vandalism at that preserve, so that it could have been in redoing that kiosk that it just got left out. We'll
I
look.
Because it was really, Melissa, Chris Harrington thought that was really just the post falling down,
Okay.
whatever reason.
Oh, that
So I
green
don't think
post-
it had anything to do with the kiosk.
That green
um,
post that's knocked over?
Yeah,
Oh,
but it might be that that Clark still has to put the new maps in because that map was changed to
include the new
put the
trail.
yellow trail in and to put the logo on. But I think, I mean, anecdotally, because I live right across the road from the Iron Mountain Preserve, the map box, people go through those maps like crazy. So I know they're using
well,
them.
if it's behind, it wasn't even behind the plexiglass.
Yeah, I understand. We'll get that
And that
fixed.
was just a, I don't know, some other kind of a map, but not one of ours.
Okay, we'll
So
get
I
that.
just, I
So
wonder,
Liddy, my story from Christmas Eve day was that I got contacted through Facebook from someone who desperately wanted to put a trails book under the Christmas tree wrapped for someone who was gonna open it on Christmas Day. And they were all out at the House of Books. And so I had to figure out how to get Sportsman's open so that we could get these people their map under the Christmas tree, because Sportsman's was closed on Christmas Eve and they did have inventory. So I can tell you that House of Books is selling them like hotcakes and they need more map
Well,
books.
they usually call me or email me and tell me when they need them, and I haven't heard from them since November.
All right,
Yeah, well, it was desperate. So I wanted to tell you that I was going to tell you regardless of that they were really wanting that under their tree and they loved it. So
people love it. They
Yeah.
love it. So, but we don't really have to visit the question of whether to print more for a little while because there are 43
That is true.
and we'll see how long that while is.
Mhm.
Okay. Depends how nice it is. Sustainable CT, any updates?
We didn't have a meeting last month or this month. I want to get in contact with Jess Leclerc and have her come to our next meeting. To give us some guidance, just to start to boil down how we can make progress towards certification and towards all of these, a lot of things that I think we already have. through this commission, through P and Z and other places in the building. And get back on track. We need some more members. We lost Miranda recently. She resigned, she's busy with new responsibilities.
Okay.
So we
Can
need
you get that meeting posted on YouTube? Because that your last meeting wasn't up, hasn't been put up.
Oh.
Which, yes, would have been 3 months ago, I think.
Yeah.
May I sneak out now?
Sure. I don't think there's really all that much more, Wendy. Lydia had to go because she actually has a Zoom at home that she has to attend.
Yeah, I
Um,
can give just a quick.
Yeah, if you don't mind, because I had a conversation with Rick about compostables, so it'd be great to get an update.
Yeah, so HRRA is, there's been a deep grant application that's been sort of half in the hopper, and Deep extended the deadline a couple of times, and it's an EPA, it's through EPA. So originally that was where our composting pilot was going to happen, but Deep is now starting to really focus on the oh, and it just flew out of my brain. Oh my goodness, pay as you throw. What was the other name for municipal solid waste? Pay as you throw. Oh goodness.
I don't
Where you
remember.
pay for the bags in
It's
advance?
No,
like
we know
So
what you mean.
PAYT.
Yeah, shifting the MSW model at the transfer station to a pay as you throw. And in addition to that, they're sort of doglegging the or adding on the compostables, the composting to that.
Mhm.
So it's now all wrapped up in the this larger pay as you throw grant. And it's really like an infrastructure grant.
It's called SMART. SMART, was that the word you were looking for?
No, some people refer to it as SMART. If you give me a minute, I'll find the email. I can't believe
Yeah.
I can't remember.
I
Save money
remember
for
going to all
youth
kinds of webinars on
Yeah.
pay as you throw,
Yeah.
and the composting. So
It's an
like
essential
people
piece.
don't like pay as you throw because all of a sudden they're paying for all their garbage. But if you offer the composting as a side, then that gives them the ability, if they're good at composting, to remove the
A lot of
heaviest part
MSW,
of their garbage. So when are we? So when I talked to Rick at the transfer station about it, his main questions were, like, how would we know how big of a, like, how would we know whether or not we're going to be able to go to, a processor or process on site? And if we process on site, how do we know how large we need to have our receptacles? And if we collect and then send to a processor on site, how do we know how large? And so I flashed back to the ideas that we've had in the past for, having some PR around this and gathering some data about people's likelihood to use it. And I wondered if it's a good time for us to start revisiting that so that we can get some information and be ready when the grant becomes available.
Mhm. Yeah, we could do that. Jen Heaton Jones, I know, does have a lot of those details.
But not for Kent.
No, but they do it in, so Ridgefield does on-site processing. Newtown, I can't remember if they do on-site or not, but they're doing composting, Bridgewater, and then up in the in the northern end of the cog, Sharon Salisbury, they actually just expanded their composting. So there's plenty of examples for sure that we can take, and it would be, the first year would be pilot under the grant. So anybody, you know, volunteer.
But like
wise.
usership at the transfer station, like how many members?
It's
are
about
there?
600 permits that we issue.
And
annually.
then, I mean, we might be able to extrapolate based on what other towns' experience is of what percentage of your customer base is likely to actually contribute
Participate, right.
organics. And that gets a little skewed here in Kent because it used to be the case that people would take their composting home to the city with them or vice versa, bring it from the city to here. And
Oh,
so,
really?
and then a certain number of customers of the transfer station are likely to be composting at home. So
Already,
it
right.
might be good to, you know, I'm going to use the word, Melissa, put your hands over your ears. Might be useful to do a survey of our town residents to see what the likelihood is in terms of volume at some point.
I do think Jennifer Heaton Jones did a survey.
Yeah,
Maybe
Jennifer
at
wrote a
your
survey.
first year, so 3.5 years ago. And she
Yeah.
probably has that info still.
I have
Okay.
it because I was gonna, I built in SurveyMonkey, so it's still sitting in our SurveyMonkey.
You
So
able to
how
share it with
many
us?
people were positive then? wanted
No,
to
we
do-
didn't actually send out the survey. We
Oh.
built it,
Oh.
but it never.
I feel like she did build a survey though and send one out maybe before you became first
Oh.
select. So you might want to ask her if she already has our data. Because she came to our meeting and like did this whole thing for us.
She did, but I thought that was where we got the idea that our next steps were to do a survey. I don't know that she
No,
ever.
I think there was a year or two in there that
Okay. Okay, let's see what we can find out. Because it would be good to be ready when the grant finally comes available, especially because what we know from other towns' experience is that people hate pay as they throw. But if you offer them an opportunity to make their garbage lighter at the same time, it goes down a little easier.
Jean,
Yes.
is a public-private partnership with this organic collection conceivable? The private schools would all produce, I would assume, a relatively predictable volume of organic compostables. And it
Mhm.
might make sense on sort of a scaling basis if you knew there was some sort of, okay, if the schools were involved in this, when we're paying into the system somehow, they've got food waste and they've got other organic waste. I don't know if this would make sense.
Yeah, I think that
If
would be
it's
great.
doable.
Yeah, I think that would be, we would definitely be open to that for sure.
How often would the town take it to New Milford Farms? Would it be a weekly thing or?
It depends on the volume, because there's all sorts of, you know, we can only keep it on site for so long, and then New Milford Farms
Yeah.
has to process it, and, you know, there's lots of, sort of, not benchmarks, but there's like timelines that
regulations.
need to follow.
But you can't wait till like the container is full before you take it because maybe you're not allowed to have it on site that long.
Yeah, I don't know the details,
Mhm.
but New Milford Farms certainly does.
Okay. Be great to see that start to move forward.
Yeah.
This year.
But so how long is this still going to last before the grant becomes available?
I'm hoping that we're gonna hear about the grant relatively soon. We have an HR meeting in, where are we? I think in another week,
I think so.
right?
It might be tomorrow. She sent the agenda today.
At the meeting of the Conservation Inland Wetlands Commission or the Kakiwik, the state organization, Jennifer and also the DP lady, what's her name again?
Oh, Katie Dykes.
No, not
Oh.
the recycling coordinator, DP. what's
Oh,
her name?
I just got an
Um,
email from,
but-
yeah.
They were saying that ARA had gotten a grant. That was in November, so I thought the grant had been awarded already, or uh,
It
they had
might
been
have-
approved.
I haven't heard, and Jen was just talking to me in the last like 3 weeks, I want to say. There was some deadline where she actually pulled me out of the certificate of need public hearing for the Sharon Hospital.
Yeah.
They're, ending those services while I was up at the Sharon Town Hall that afternoon. So whenever
Mhm.
that was, she had a deadline that she needed to meet,
Okay.
needed some information from me. But I'll get more information from her.
Because Cheryl Baldwin, I think was the name.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Do you, and then before we leave sustainable materials management, would you say that the new containers are part of this update? I think people should know
The
about
new
that.
redeemable.
All of a sudden, yeah, starting now, I don't know,
Actually,
starting
first.
Jan 1.
Right on my
um,
desk. Hang on
There
one
are
second.
there are
Yeah.
new drink containers that are eligible for redemption. So you should be aware of
I
that.
don't know how
It's
you
like-
redeem them though. I haven't figured that out yet. Have you?
Yeah, you can, I mean, the town transfer station will take them. And I'm sure that redemption centers will take them as well. So it's like juice containers.
Yeah, sports drinks, energy drinks, juice, hard seltzer.
Mm,
But they need to get one of these codes on the bottle first, right? Before it
Well,
works.
there's
there's
some
some like back
nice,
way, like.
yeah,
Because
really
I
weedy
tried it
detail.
at IGA and they didn't take it.
I
put
think
it in-
Rick told me that there was some thing that you had
There's
to
this
print
really
out that
horrible-
would tell you which, if it was purchased
Yeah,
at a
so-
Connecticut place.
Governor Lamont signed on November 29th. The governor signed into law provision that allows for a grace period on labeling inventory for beverages that were previously not subject to the bottle bill, but will be covered beginning January 1, allowing inventory that has already been purchased by retailers by December 31st to be sold, even if it's not correctly labeled for deposit. Those unlabeled containers will be able to be redeemed beginning on January 1, 2023. How's that for some seriously weedy?
Yeah, but they still don't really tell you how to do it.
No, that's what they don't tell. They tell
Yeah.
you that it's allowed and will be redeemable,
Right.
but
So you'd have to.
Right. So my question is, how do you redeem it? And you guys don't know that.
Manager
I guess where it comes down.
say, oh, yeah, okay, we'll pay you for this. I mean, that's a hassle.
right,
Well,
it's,
look,
for
worst comes to
everybody.
worst, for the first couple of months, we continue to just plain old recycle them.
right.
And then when the labels catch up, we can get 5 cents for it.
What, and could you just clarify, what are the drinks that are now in this inclusion?
So in total, beverages that will be required to have a deposit refund as of January 1, beer, soda, water, sports drinks, energy drinks, juice, hard seltzer, hard cider, tea and coffee, kombucha, plant water, coconut water, for example, and
Thanks.
carbonated spirit-based beverages.
Okay.
The big ones are sports drinks, energy drinks, and juice.
So Yos, you went to IGA and you handed them back your container, or did you
No,
go out
I
to the
went-
shed?
I put them in the machines on the side and they just kept coming back out. So I ended up taking them home and put them in the recycling bin.
Yeah,
But-
so probably those machines haven't been
Yeah.
reprogrammed.
Yeah, but there's things that like now will have deposits that won't fit in those round holes in our machines. Like the big jug of orange juice, for example,
Right.
is now you're paying deposit on, and I don't know how you redeem it. So
Right.
I don't buy it though, so I don't really need to solve the problem myself. Just to clarify.
Yeah, it's gonna be, I imagine there's gonna be a gap in the implementation.
And it's just
There's gonna
plastic
be-
and glass, right?
Right.
Because if you bought
Um,
orange juice in a carton, would you?
I don't actually think they make orange juice in a cart. Well, like I'm thinking Tropicana, so I'm just like thinking of my parents' refrigerator.
I got it in the
But-
car.
Okay, well,
Yeah, I would think any
I guess I'm
material.
more thinking about next year when the nips and all that become the next one and wine bottles and such. And I just want to understand how if they roll this one out, not so great, what is the next revision that's already been approved going to get rolled? How is that going to get rolled out?
Right, and so the next revision that was approved in this public act is, everything goes from 5 cents to 10
Yeah.
cents next January.
And the nips and the wine bottles.
Well,
Money.
Right. Were wine bottles in this public
I
act?
believe so. Not this one, but the next.
Right,
I'm
they're
pretty
gonna
sure.
propose that.
No, I think it got approved. Not for this year, though. 2024.
Which kind of brings me to, well, I don't even know that we can raise it as new business. So I'll just remember to email Carol about it. The session started. So we will be, we can add back into our agenda, looking at any raised bills that
Okay.
relate to our business.
So
Okay,
the
good.
good news is that public hearings are still going to be on Zoom, which means that if we do want to testify in anything as a commission or individually, it's a Zoom, not needing to go to Hartford, which is a lot easier. And it's the long session, so it goes for quite a while.
I'll add that in.
Okay, great.
Unit-based pricing, that's what it's called.
Oh, the pay as you throw?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We knew you'd get it, Jean.
All right.
So you think
So,
that might be introduced at the transfer station at some point? Yeah.
new business, there is none. Correspondence, also none. And so, given that we have no further business before us, I'll entertain a
Motion
motion.
to adjourn at 7:49.
So at the next
Second.
meeting, we have to talk about the budget,
Can we have a second?
I suppose.
Yost does
Second.
not want to second that one.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I Liddy made a reference to it and didn't say for sure. So,
I'll contact Liddy to see if I should put it on the agenda specifically, or whether she'll just include it in treasurer's report.
sounds good. All right, at 7:49, we are adjourning. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See ya.
Turn off the recording.